Hi, it is Friday. It was absolutely tipping it down this morning, so the ground is really sodden. But what I'm doing is a bit of a shed tidy because we've got a new cupboard. I think I mentioned at the end of last week's vlog that somebody had found a cupboard in the street for me. Anyway, I've got it here and I'm going to get it on the wall. The original place that I was thinking of putting it isn't going to work because the shelf that I'd have to move is actually a shelf that's holding the shed up. Because the shed was a rescue that came out of somebody's back garden, and the shed had to be cut in half, or at least the panels had to be cut in half to get up to the allotment. So it's actually been cut in half, our shed. I'll show you where you can see the poor scar lines. But anyway, we've had it for a number of years after they got rid of it, and we've also moved it twice, so it's had a life, this shed. But where I was going to put the new cupboard is actually like right across one of the scar lines from the cutting, and there's a shelf on there which is kind of holding it together, so I figured probably not a good idea to tamper with that shelf. So I'm going to put it near the doorway, but I'll show you anyway. Right, and this is said lovely shed. So can you see above the door here, we've got that cut mark, so we took the jigsaw to it there, nicely disguised by a water lily. And then right at the back, on the back wall, can you see where the light's coming through in that little strip? And we've cut through the supporting piece there, so that had to be cut in half as well. And this shelf above here is kind of what's restabilising that, so I'm not going to move that. This is where I'm going to put the cupboard. I'm not going to attach it to this, which is the panelling of the shed, because it's just too thin, so I want it attached to this. And they are too far apart for the hooks for the shed, so I'm going to jimmy this up, which is got hooks on at the moment, but I'll get rid of them. And it's like what I've done with the tools here. So instead of putting screws through the outer side of the shed, I'm just putting them on these battens, and I'm going to lift this one up to the top here because I want the cupboard to be up against the ceiling. What's been hanging here before on those big hooks is these bases, which are like lounge chairs for when we're incredibly busy up here. But they're going to go in here and they'll be absolutely fine in the netting shed because we've got all their, like, you know, the cushions and stuff that go on them in here too. So we're just reuniting them basically. So this is the cupboard that's going in there. It's a bit of a strange little chap. It's like sort of fake French bistro type thing, but you know, it's not old or anything, it's a replica, but I am very happy with that as a freebie. It's even still got the label on it, look at that. Don't know what's going on, but I'm very happy to have it. Perfect. So this is where it's going to go. Like I say, these hooks had the chair bases on them beforehand. I'm going to take them off and use them elsewhere. And this batten is there to give the hook something to go on. So I'm just going to move it up. Look at that. There's so many cobwebs in here. I'm like weaving with them on the end of the screwdriver. So I'm going to use the same batten I had for the chair legs, and I'm just going to put it up a bit higher. The cupboard's going on it's got two little kind of eye hooks on the back, so I'm just going to put some slightly proud screws into this batten and hang it off that. Now I've got to find something to put in it. Actually, inspired by having this new bit of furniture, I'm going to give the shed a right good tidy. It's been such cold, miserable weather recently that sort of you come up here and you know you've got something to do, so you're scribbling around doing that, and then by the time it's time to go, you're absolutely freezing, and we just throw everything into the shed and head off home, and it just means that the shed just turns into this kind of chaotic mess of stuff dumped in it. So in honour of the new cupboard, I'm going to give it a really good clean, ready for spring. I've got these absolutely fantastic vegetable boxes under here that my sister gave me, and I'm just going to use them for the moment temporarily to keep this stuff off the ground. But when we start harvesting stuff in spring, I'm going to use them like they're supposed to be used. But at the moment we've got loads of this chicken bits and pieces, so I'm going to use them for storage. It's totally dry in here, so they're not going to rot or be damaged by sitting under this bench for another 6 months. Right, looking much clearer in here now. Got some bits and pieces in the new cupboard. Got the tools all back where they're supposed to go. Kettle's safe. All the bits and pieces, tools are hung up. All of that's organised, I know where everything is now. Underneath we've still got a lot of junk, but I know what's under there now, so that helps. And this is all the chicken stuff. We've got a lot of spray bottles for the chickens. Various bits and pieces in them. Oh yeah, got rid of the cobwebs over the windows. Tea mugs are ready to go. Lovely. Oh, I love a tidy shed. Look at all that surface. Well, that's ready for spring, isn't it? I'm really pleased with that little cupboard. We have not really worked out what we're going to put in there yet, but at the moment I've put the seeds that were saved from last year's herbs in there and some gloves. Because where we've normally got the gloves, it's like right underneath the bench and they're normally full of bugs. So up here, I'm hoping that's going to be slightly better. Yeah, job well done, I think. Good morning. It is the very last day of January 2021. I'm up here successfully avoiding doing my tax return, which is due today. Yeah. It's suitable January weather, it's really cold, it's soggy, and my priority this morning is to make myself hot chocolate in here. And then what I'm going to do is just turf out some of the manure we've got in bags at the top there. So yeah, hot chocolate. Yeah, so I'm going to do today is just put some manure on some of the beds, get them ready for spring, particularly around the beans. Previous years I've really gone in for like the classic sort of crop rotation situation where things are grouped, so you've got your brassicas, your potatoes, your alliums and your beans, and keeping them moving around the plot to try and stop the build-up of soil-borne diseases. It makes perfect sense, but a lot of the soil-borne diseases that we've got, i.e. the club root, I know you're probably sick of hearing me talk about club root. I'm sick of saying club root, to be honest, but it's just something that we have to live with up here. And I mean, crop rotation is really important when it comes to large scale. But on the scale that we're at, actually clubroot lasts in the soil for up to 20 years. And I don't have enough beds to keep the brassicas off certain beds for up to 20 years. So I'm modifying it slightly this year. We're still moving things around. Like, we never grow brassicas in the same bed each year anyway. So our potatoes are going in bags this year, which is going to take them out of the rotation completely. We're also going to move our brassicas on a few beds and the pumpkins and move everything around. But the thing that's not moving is the beans. I've always been really diligent about moving the beans kind of from bed to bed, and we used to have quite a snaz kind of like collapsible and then remakeable. Oh, hold on, I haven't got this on yet. I'm chatting and I haven't got my kettle on. Yeah, so we used to have a really good collapsible bean frame that we used to grow the runner beans up, and it just used to kind of go over the bed. It fit perfectly on top of the beds, and that's what we would use each year, and it would kind of move around the plot. And French beans and stuff, we would grow up teepees, you know, bamboo canes. But now we've got the arches, and I don't want to move the arches. We do move the beans along, but they're all in the same family, so really it doesn't make any difference if you're growing Belotti or Runner or French or whatever on the same thing, because they're all pretty much of a muchness. But there are people on this site, I mean, we've been here a long time, but there's people like, there's a lady up here who's had her allotment since the early 70s, and she has a permanent bean frame on her allotment. She grows her beans up that every single year. Doesn't seem to have a problem, just piles on the manure in the autumn. It's likewise with 2 allotments up. I mean, people tend to have these kind of quite fixed bean frames. I mean, you have to have quite a strong bean frame, particularly for things like the Greek gigantes and the runner beans and all that kind of stuff, because they're really quite vigorous growers and they kind of tumble over. If you've just got a little 6-foot teepee, you've got no chance. Like, it's just not going to be able to hold them up. So people are kind of putting these really strong bean frames in. But it does mean that you have to then grow your beans in the same spot every year, and that's what I'm doing basically, to cut a long story short. But I am going to be quite careful about getting a load of manure on top of there, because that's what the lady up there does, and I think that's probably quite important. We have a really poor soil, it's just sand basically, so every year everything just gets washed straight through it. So we're really focusing on building up every single year a good thick layer of organic matter, just to try and bulk out the soil a little bit, because in the summer when you're watering, you just basically water the soil off it and you're just left with sand. So we're trying to combat that, and where the beans are growing is the end of the beds, obviously where the arches are, and I just want to pile a load of compost on top of there and really hope that the beans enjoy that, because they like to have good water retention, the beans. Often you see people like dig a big trench under where they're planting their beans, and they pack it with like the scraps from the bottom of the compost heap, even like unrotted compost people sometimes just shove in the bottom. A couple of years ago, well actually it was quite a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago, there was a guy up here who dug his bean trench and just filled it with Argos catalogues. I'm sure that wasn't a very good idea, but the principle was the same. The amount of ink that was in those Argos catalogues, do you remember them? They were like this big. Anyway, that's what he did. But it's that same sort of thing, you just want to like fill your bean trenches. But we don't really dig trenches on our plot, unless you're actually planting something in it, you dig a hole. But generally we just kind of lay stuff on the top and let the worms take it in. And we are lucky in the sense that we have a huge number of worms and creepy crawlies and bugs. I mean, if you move the soil, just it's moving, so that's a really good sign. And that's kind of come about over the last couple of years as we've been really laying on the mulches really thick. But what was I saying? Yeah, so I am just dumping some manure on the beans, having a hot chocolate up here this morning, avoiding my tax return. So by the end of today, we should only have 4 or 5 beds that haven't been mulched, and they're the ones which have got the stuff growing in that's going to be growing over winter, and we will have to mulch them early spring. Yeah, well, that was a good old ramble, wasn't it? I'm watching Mum out the window. Her hot chocolate's going to get cold. She's too far away for me to shout, and she's chatting. I don't know what she's talking about. She's gesticulating wildly. It'd be cruel to let her hot chocolate go cold, wouldn't it? I'll take it out to her. So this is the first of the bean arches. That one is sat in the back of the established asparagus bed. And the other side of it is where the chimney wrapper is. So I'm going to mulch that. This bit of mulching area has actually got this really well established parsley in it. I'm going to try and save some of these and then mulch over the top of the rest of them and see if they survive. They might do, they might not, I'm not sure. But this arch is in the newer asparagus bed. We put 10 crowns in here 2 years ago, so they've got another couple of years before we can pick them. But they all came up, all 10 of them, so I was really pleased about that. But this bed is rife with these little chaps, which are nasturtium seeds from last year. They're like little frilly brains. But I'm just noticing there's absolutely tons of them in here, so this is going to basically be a voluntary nasturtium bed next year. So yeah, the parsley I want to try and save or do something with, or at least harvest most of it, but this side is clear. And on this side I've just got a couple of voluntary rocket seedlings which I'll try and not cover up completely with the mulch. If my parsley doesn't survive down the end, I've still got this really large patch of it up here, so I'm not fretting too much about it. So when we're talking about crop rotation, it's not just soil-borne diseases which are the problem. It's also each type of crop has its own kind of micronutrients that it needs from the soil. And if you grow the same crop in the same place year on year, it's going to strip that soil really quickly of those micronutrients. So if you are growing your crops in the same place every year, like I'm going to be doing with these bean arches for at least a couple of years, just going to have to be really vigilant about feeding the soil. So not just with this manure that's going on top now that will hopefully have kind of rotted in a bit by the time it's time to actually plant the beans out. But when we do plant the beans, we will be including some of our own compost in the soil and just generally really feeding it up nicely, because beans are very hungry plants anyway. And the last couple of years, they will have really stripped this soil out. While I'm in here, I've also got some lamb's lettuce or corn salad, whichever you want to call it, to go in. These were from a gift, actually from the same lady who gave us the cupboard that's gone up in the sheds the other day. So yeah, thanks very much again, Caroline. But these are transplanted from her plot in a place that she needed to plant something else out. So we're just kind of shifting them around. They've been grown outside up until this point, but I don't really have any space outside that I want to put these over to, so I'm going to try them in here. I feel a chard lasagna coming on, folks. I can feel it in my bones. However reluctant I am to go home and do this tax return, my hands are really cold and there's only so much hot chocolate you can drink before it makes you feel really sick. So I think the time has come for me to go home and open that file that says tax returns. Yeah. Well, I'm pleased to announce my tax return is done. It went in on time and I didn't get fined. Wonderful. And I'm also incredibly pleased to announce that I can actually cheers you. So cheers to February. January down. Yeah, that's what I've been missing. Actually, I've got to admit, I found dry January an awful lot easier than I thought I was going to. I thought the lockdown might have made it harder. I think probably with hindsight, actually, if I was having to go out and go to the pub and things, I think it probably would have been more difficult. Having said that, I have done, I went on some medication about 2 years ago now. Yeah, it was about 2 years ago, where you couldn't drink and have it, and I was potentially on that for like years. So I did stop drinking and I was quite fine going to the pub and not drinking. I say quite fine, it wasn't ideal. But you know, I coped. So I was thinking that, and then I thought, oh, but lockdown, like, it's just my day ends when I go downstairs, start cooking the dinner, glass of wine, kind of that's how I finish my days off, and that kind of gets me into mode to kind of, that's the end of my day kind of mode. I don't really watch the television, so I don't have that. I just have like the wind down. I listen to audiobooks or podcasts and just cook and drink, basically. Yeah, so I thought in lockdown, because that's been like quite a stabilising factor in my lockdown so far. But actually I've been drinking Brewdog, do 2 really quite good non-alcoholic beers. And they're not, I don't know if you remember years ago, like non-alcoholic beers used to be absolutely full of just crap, you know, like the list of ingredients like covered half of the bottle. And they always, like, if you drank non-alcoholic beer in a pub or whatever, you'd get a headache before you'd finish the bottle. Like, it was awful stuff. But actually, I started out on Brewdogs. They've got Nanny State and Punk AF. I'll just use AF. And both of them are really, really nice. And I've actually got quite into drinking them when I'm cooking. So I might even try and continue that. Who knows? But anyway, this is incredibly appreciated. So mulching the arches this week, I'm so pleased I got that done. I really should have done that much, much earlier than I did, but you know, this stuff happens. But on next Saturday's video, I don't know if you've noticed, I've been trying to get a video out every Saturday as well as my vlog, just like an extra thing, you know, not in the same vein as the vlog, because the vlog is really just quite a lot of ramble and quite a lot of just what have I been up to in the week. And I'm trying to do kind of one more targeted video later in the week. I still don't want to do like, this is how you must do this process or something, but just a bit more referencey, because I made the episode guide for the vlogs, and as I was running through them I was like, my goodness, I have gone through a lot of stuff in the last year, and it would be really helpful, I think, if I just kind of like drew some of them together, you know. So I'll be able to kind of go through the footage of all the carrot sowings and the things I did for the carrot and making the carrot box and all that kind of stuff, just kind of bring them together and put them out on a Saturday, so that it's a little less having to go through me doing everything to find the one nugget of information you're interested in. That's my plan anyway. So next Saturday I'm going to be talking about growing beans up the arches. I've increased the number of bean varieties that I'm growing like hugely this year, and I don't have anywhere to put them, and also the achocha needs somewhere to grow up. So anyway, little bit of a change of plan, but that's going to be in next week's vlog. But I'm also going to do a bit of a feature on what to grow beans up and why I grow beans up the arches next Saturday. Not going to go into it now though, because then it'd be a bit of a waste of time for Saturday, wouldn't it? But yeah, I'm going to talk about why I like growing beans up arches in the Saturday video. The next important thing to say is a whopping great thank you to everybody who watches. We went past the 5k subscribers mark last week, which is incredible to think that 5,000 people have actually clicked that subscribe button. That is something else, it really is. And I also huge thank you to everybody who's put my name on like Facebook lists and put links to the channel outside and just trying to get the word out. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. It's quite overwhelming really, and it's all the comments. I just enjoy it so much. The community on here is incredible, and I often read the comments before long before I've answered them, because I tend to read the comments when I'm supposed to be working or I'm doing something where I can't really reply, but they like pop up on my screen and I'm just like, it's brilliant. And it's also the information share, like the knowledge sharing. I get some really amazing bits of information through on the comments, and I appreciate it so much from every single one of you. I love it. It's just the nicest thing. Yeah, it really is lovely. Thank you. So yeah, basically cheers. I'm glad I can properly cheers you. It would have been very sad to have cheersed you with an orange juice. Yeah, cheers to everybody who's subscribed and who's put my name out there. It's just marvellous. Thank you. Next thing to say is anybody who's waiting for seeds from me, envelopes finally came through the post this morning. I've completely run out of envelopes, and everything, I was like wrapping things in little bits of paper and sticking them down and all that. I was just like, just hold it off, Jessie, wait for the envelopes. So I'm on it with the envelopes now. I'm going to be sending out everything that I've promised to do everybody. It's coming this week, I promise. And talking of seed swapping and seed exchange, if you haven't already, go and check out the seed exchange, which I will put the link above my head now. It's a really simple forum. You just have to register and then it's go. The registration isn't actually done through me and my website. It's done through WordPress. So I don't have access to help you out if you lose your password, or if your login doesn't work. It's all done through WordPress. I had a couple of notes from people who said they couldn't get in. I am looking into it, but I can't access the information, so I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm on the case, I promise. But yeah, so get involved if you're interested in swapping seeds, whether they're saved seed or seed that you've bought that you don't want anymore, or seeds that you've been given. Get on there and see if anybody else wants them, or if there's something you're particularly after. I mean, I've been looking for a number of different seeds, which I just haven't been able to get hold of because the seed companies are so busy. This is a bit of an alternative if you can't find what you need. All the links to this will be underneath if you missed my little visitation that was above my head. And talking of varieties, I've been getting my Excel spreadsheet of the 2021 varieties that we're going to grow sorted out. I'm a massive fan of an Excel spreadsheet. I may not look it, but I actually discovered the joys of a spreadsheet. It wasn't that many years ago, but it was when I was doing my final show for my masters, and the pieces of work that I was making were really like process led, so there was lots of stages in between, and if I hadn't got it sort of mapped out, I wasn't able to kind of keep track of where I was in the process, and a lot of it wasn't visual, or you couldn't tell that it had been done, so I needed to track it out. And I just like made a little spreadsheet on Excel, you know, what all the different stages, all the different pieces, where the thing, and I could just map them off, cross them off as I was going. And the mixture of it was like a to-do list on steroids. So you're like marking off the boxes as you go and all the different stages. Well, firstly, it was incredibly satisfying to do, but also I'm not a naturally organized person. Like, I don't find organizing stuff in my head particularly easily, and this was just like this beautiful box system that worked a treat. And since then I have just used Excel for everything. I say Excel, I've got Excel on one laptop, but I also use Google Sheets, and I also use OpenOffice, so I use all of them. Any of those spreadsheet type things I'm into. And this year I'm getting all of the seeds for 2021, all the varieties for 2021 listed up there, and where I got them from. Yeah, so what I wanted to do was to just put this like neat list up, you know, types of veg, all the varieties I'm growing, and then where I got them from and a little link to show you where to get them from. But so many of the seed companies are sold out that every link I put in basically just leads to a page on, I don't know, Thompson & Morgan or Real Seeds or wherever that just says sold out for 2021 or whatever. So that part of it's not going so well. So I think what's going to happen, chaps, is I'm just going to put the list up there for reference, and I will put where I got them from, so maybe you can go and see if you can find them, but it might have to be a case of just like looking around all the seed companies if you're after that particular variety, because it's not easy again this year. It's really not easy. I'm hoping that it is because just everybody's got really into growing veg, but that's what I hope. Let's just go with that. I'm really hoping that's what it is. Go for the optimistic version. So that's about it for this week, chaps. Again, a massive thank you to every single one of you. I still find it amazing. And if you've got anything to comment, leave it below. Any questions, leave it below. I'll do another Q&A coming up in a couple of weeks, see if there's anything else since we've got so many more people involved. If you've enjoyed it, give me the thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, think about hitting the subscribe button. Basically, all I want to say is thank you. So I'm going to say cheers, proper cheers. We're back, chaps, we're back. Proper cheers, and here's to February. We're off. It's nearly spring. It's nearly spring.